My mindset journey has been a profound and life-changing experience. I've overcome childhood trauma, 2 divorces, and decades of income insecurity. Once I understood that my thoughts were creating my reality, things began to change. And that new path led me into a career as a successful home organizer and to my passion and mission, which is to help people know they have the power to change their lives. I'm professional organizer Lisa Archilla, and welcome to The Conscious Organizer. This channel is for intuitive organizers who want to craft a meaningful and successful business. And this video is for anyone who wants to bring power, joy, and peace back into their lives. If that sounds good, please subscribe and hit that like button so that more people can see this video. This previously recorded excerpt is from a larger project that I was working on. I was the poster child for being stuck in life. I spent my first 5 decades just treading water in all the big categories: relationships, money, career, and health. And there were times I felt like I was drowning. My beliefs had kept me in lack and loneliness until I figured out it didn't have to be that way, and it changed my life. Mindset is just the set of beliefs about ourselves and the world that we function from. And those beliefs are shaped by our parents, by our community, and the greater society. My parents, like everyone, were the first and greatest influence on my beliefs. I grew up in a solidly middle-class, white, religiously and politically conservative family. And so I experienced life through that lens with those particular people, and that is what formed my beliefs about myself and the world. I never had the fear of missing a meal or anything else for that matter. My parents loved me, encouraged me, and gave me wonderful opportunities. And at the same time, the vast majority of the memories of my childhood are laced with just a general sense of insecurity. I was never really quite able to relax. My mom had several chronic health issues, and she was constantly either just in discomfort or physical pain. She was irritable, angry, critical, and disappointed with life. And there was always a lot of fussing between my mom and dad and between my mom and me. And then that unhappiness later manifested in what today would be called hoarding disorder, and our house began to fill up. The result was a mother who, though she truly was doing her very best, was inadvertently emotionally abusive. And my dad was just the classic enabler, keeping a low profile, sacrificing his own needs just to keep the peace. As an adult, I have a much greater understanding and empathy for what my parents were going through. And of course, there were many happy times. But my parents, like all parents, were constantly sending spoken and unspoken messages, both positive and negative. And I absorbed a set of beliefs about relationships, money, career, and health that formed the basis of my life for many years. Relationship messages were full of contradictions. My parents were good people who loved me and each other deeply and treated others with honesty and respect. We were very active in our church and had a loving circle of friends and family. But because of all the bickering at home, everyday life was just full of strife and loneliness. I witnessed a poor relationship model where there were no tools to communicate effectively, to share feelings in a healthy way, and move past blocks. It didn't seem like my parents had intimate relationships, and there were rarely people in our home. Because of that, and my mom's critical nature, from a very early age, I internalized a subtle message that I was not lovable, and that life was generally unpleasant. Because of those beliefs, what showed up in my life was a string of dysfunctional relationships, starting at age 14, a 10-year toxic marriage, 2 divorces, few close friends, and long-term relationships that were not emotionally satisfying. Money was a complicated subject. As a teen, I had trouble earning money. I did odd jobs and babysat, but I just always felt like money was elusive. And then at home, I would often hear, "We can't afford it." And yet we seem to be able to buy a lot of things. My mom was relaying a mixture of pleasure and shame about buying things that only grew as the hoarding increased. One of the beliefs that I took away from my child and teen years is that it was hard to make money and that you would just never have enough money. Another belief was that it was somehow shameful to have something that you admired or wanted, kind of like you just didn't deserve it. What showed up in my life for the next 40 years? I never had extra money, only enough to meet my immediate needs and sometimes barely that. Any money I had ever accrued in savings always just went to some repair or unexpected situation, or I spent it and felt badly about it. There were mixed messages about careers. Both my parents worked and had successes. They had made their own way in life, and my mom even had her own business for a while. There were times of prosperity and lack, and ventures that were taken that succeeded and some that failed, but things always seemed to work out. And I could see that they were admired by their colleagues, and I was proud of them. When it came time for college, my parents were supportive and generously paid for me to go, but I had no idea what I wanted to do. There was very little discussion about career choices or what I would even be good at. And, part of it was the career path for girls in the 1980s was not as diverse as it is now. And honestly, too, my parents probably just didn't know how to help me figure it out. But my dad just counseled me to get a teaching degree because then I would always have a job. There were two big career beliefs that stayed with me for many years. The first one was that somehow things just were going to work out, that I would be sustained even though I had no idea what that would look like. The second belief was that I would just never make a lot of money because I wouldn't be in a high-paying profession. That just wasn't for me. I was smart, but not that smart. And that's what played out. Decades of gig jobs, sometimes 5 at a time, and living paycheck to paycheck. Never really seeing all the things I might be capable of doing or exploring my whole skill set. The cluttered house was a daily unspoken message about mental health. On the rare occasion we did have people in the home, my mom would try to hide all the clutter, and my dad and I had to help, and it was stressful and just frankly impossible. And yet every year more and more stuff came into the house. It was a constant source of irritation for my dad, and I watched my mom take on a shame about it. There was no way to discuss it with her without her feeling judged or defensive. Going to a counselor was a complete non-starter for my parents. Because of their generation and their own family histories, there was just too much stigma around therapy or even discussing your personal issues. So nothing ever changed. One of the biggest takeaways from growing up with my mom and dad was that I was powerless to control anything, that life just happened to me. Basically, I learned to see myself as a victim. And also, watching a parent's physical health deteriorate year after year led me to the conclusion that the future only brings decline. That mindset manifested in my life in the inability to set my own boundaries, fear and reluctance to seek help, being stuck for years in negative and destructive patterns, and the beginning of my own health issues. My mindset shift began during my first marriage at age 22. It seemed like the perfect relationship from the outside, but it was truly toxic and debilitating. I have always been a spiritual person, even from childhood, and to this day it is the most significant part of my life. And so because of my evangelical background, I believed that I was in this marriage for life, no exceptions. And so I just kept trusting that God would fix it, that He would heal it, that He would rescue me. I was silent for many months, but when I did finally reach out to the church for help, I was met with well-meaning but awkward responses of just keep trusting. And so I did. But as things went into year 8 and 9, I began to resent a God who was silent in the face of my grief and depression. One day, I just couldn't do it anymore. I yelled at God that I didn't care if it was a sin to leave. I was done. And it is to this day the greatest watershed moment of my life. A flood of peace that I cannot adequately describe came over me as I heard the words, I never asked you to stay. And I realized in that moment that everything I'd been through the last 9 years was of my own making. My lack of agency to act was based on the beliefs that I had about myself, about God, and about my role in the world. A cocktail that I had mixed from my parents, the church, and society. From that moment on, I began to question all my beliefs. If I was wrong about that one, what else was I wrong about? It's hard to explain, but I didn't even know that I could question anything. It was such a freedom. I made the powerful decision to go to counseling, and that was the beginning of the change. Understanding why I had gathered up all those beliefs opened the door to my healing. One counselor in particular introduced me to the idea that we can change our lives by choosing our thoughts. One session I was complaining from my victim mode, and she said, "Just choose joy. You can choose it right now." I did not get that. I just couldn't hear it at the time, but the seed was planted. I continued therapy for several years and did a lot of energy work. Things began to shift as I gained new insights and learned to see myself in a healthier way. But in many ways, I was still stuck in chronic lack, mediocre career success, and dysfunctional relationships. But I knew there was more to me, more to this life than what I was experiencing. I could feel deeply that life was supposed to be good and that the universe really did have my back. My life just wasn't reflecting that. It wasn't until I truly internalized that my thoughts and beliefs were creating my reality and that I could choose the thoughts I wanted that things really began to change. Over the months and years that followed, new resources and methods for growth came into my life. Mindfulness practices that helped me focus my thoughts, like affirmations, meditation, visualization, all became a regular part of my day. And things that integrated the mind and body were especially helpful. I found that Tai Chi and Qigong were the most powerful tools on my journey. I put together a toolkit of techniques that helped me let go of so many of those old thoughts about myself and money and the world that were holding me back. I started asking myself what I wanted my life to be like, to dream and not just hope it would happen, but to know it would. Since my days of awakening in my 30s, my image of God has evolved from a distant father figure to something much bigger, much more powerful, and much more intimate. It is the sweetest, most precious relationship I could have ever imagined. Source and I now co-create my life, and it's wonderful. My life has changed in so many ways since those early days. I now understand the mental and emotional process that's involved in creating a healthy mindset and how to apply it in my daily life. I know how to be discriminate and deliberate in my thought choices. There will always be unwanted experiences in life, but now I respond to negative situations from a different place. I'm definitely still a work in progress. I have bad days like everybody else, and I still sometimes choose things that I know are not going to take me in the direction I want to go. But I know how to get unstuck. I've experienced firsthand how changing your thoughts changes your reality. So here's how those 4 big areas in my life have been transformed. In career and money, I have created a successful business from scratch in the home organizing industry. I make a good living that is sustainable and has the ability to scale as I please. I work in a profession that perfectly matches my skill set and gifts. My natural abilities plus my life experiences make me a great match for people who need help decluttering and organizing their homes. I have a wonderful schedule that allows me the freedom to pursue my interests and gives me time for myself. I make a real difference in the lives of people, and I love what I do. In relationships and health, I understand and can practice how to have meaningful relationships. And I'm comfortable communicating my boundaries and expressing my needs in a healthy way. I have an eagerness and expectation about the future and what life holds for me. There's genuine pleasure, satisfaction, and fun in most days. And I am in great physical health and very active. All these positive things are a direct reflection of the change in my mindset, of embracing the power to choose the thoughts that create the life I want. So here are some of my new beliefs. Love is abundant, and I am worthy to receive it and joyful in giving it. It's easy to make money. There's always enough. Money is my friend. I am uniquely talented and capable of accomplishing anything that I can imagine for myself. And life just keeps getting better and better. And things work out. That's one of the positive messages I kept from my folks, and it has sustained me many a time. Yes, there were some bad things that happened, but there were a lot of good things. There is a lot to appreciate about my past. But my greatest joy is knowing that I have the power to choose what I take into my future. Thank you so much for watching. If you'd like to hear more about mindset and the organizing industry, please subscribe and hit the bell so you'll get notified of future content. And for more resources for the intuitive organizer, please visit theconsciousorganizer.com. Thank you again for watching, and remember, you can change your life.